Good evening, everyone. I'm Esha Dutta, and I welcome you to yet another session of an Author's Afternoon, an initiative of Prabha Khaitan Foundation. Today's session is in association with Taj Bengal, with the support of Ehsaas Women. It is a privilege to have Srinjoy Chowdhury grace today's edition of the Author's Afternoon. Before we begin, a few words about the foundation. As many of our regular guests here will know, Prabha Khaitan Foundation is dedicated to fostering the performing arts, culture, education, literature, gender equality, and women's empowerment. Through author meetups, book launches, literary festivals for both seasoned and young authors, panel discussions, boutique festivals, performances by singers, dancers, and theatre artists, the Foundation continues to celebrate the world of creativity and expression. Authors and artists connect with their niche audience through events under the auspices of its various initiatives. Now my turn to introduce our guest for today, Srinjoy Chowdhury. Srinjoy Chowdhury is an acclaimed journalist, author and educator with a prolific career spanning over 4 decades. His journey in journalism began in 1984 as a sub-editor with the Sunday magazine Kolkata. He went on to serve as a special correspondent for the Telegraph, Kolkata and New Delhi, before becoming the chief of bureau at the Statesman, New Delhi. Since 2005, he has been associated with Times Now as the consulting editor, National Affairs, where his insights on current events and national issues have made him a respected voice in the industry. As an author, Srinjoy has penned several notable works, including Dispatches from Kargil, Flight into Fear, and co-authored with Captain Devi Sharan, Puffin Quiz Books 1, 2, 3, Football Fever. His essays including Tahrir in the Dilemma of Popular Sovereignty in the Middle East and The View from an Indian Television Newsroom, What Makes Us Different, in Media at Work in China and India, both reflect his keen analytical perspective and expertise in international affairs and media studies. Srinjoy has also made significant contributions to education as a visiting professor of defense journalism at Rashtriya Raksha University and has delivered lectures on journalism at esteemed institutions like Lady Shri Ram College and the National University of Singapore. In addition to his editorial and academic pursuits, Srinjoy is an avid quizmaster, having conducted hundreds of quizzes for schools, colleges, institutions, and foreign missions. His intellectual curiosity and passion for knowledge have inspired many through his interactive sessions. In conversation today with the author is Air Chief Marshal Arup Raha, retired. He is an esteemed Indian Air Force veteran who served as the 21st Chief of the Air Staff of the Indian Air Force from December 2013 to December 2016. He was also the chairman of the Chiefs of Staff Committee, where he played a pivotal role in advising the government. Currently, Air Chief Marshal Raha serves as the Chancellor of Assam University, continuing his commitment to leadership and nation building. His extensive experience in military strategy, air operations and defense policy make him one of India's most respected military minds. Without taking much time, over to you. Thank you.
I can't tell you how much of a privilege this is, because normally when people come for book launches and book discussions, you find 4 people and a dog. Now I attribute the fact that there are so many people to the gentleman on my left, who has always been very supportive when he was vice chief and he was chief. That's one. There are things to worry about today. I'm very concerned about my physical health because there are about half a dozen people on my right who are threatening to throw chalk at me. So I'm a little concerned. If you guys can help ensure security, I'll be very happy. So
Sir, mic not working.
So,
You don't need it. You're absolutely clear.
so that's one. And I have to thank Prabha Khaitan Foundation. I have to thank the hotel, Taj Bengal. It's the first time I'm coming here. It's absolutely splendid. I have to thank Penguin for ensuring this. And I have to thank the most important people here. That's all of you. Because if you weren't here, there's no point talking to an empty hall, right? So, most bestsellers one hears are about two things: food, how to cook and what to eat, and about diets. So one is about gaining weight, one is about losing. I've already written a book on war, and that too was written 25 years ago. So I'm grateful to a lot of people, particularly people, apart from the people I mentioned, are all the people in Kargil who actually helped me, because I was there for 3 months, and every day there was like 10 days. The day, and because it's a kind of place where you took terrible risks, and I especially took terrible risks at that time. And much later, when reviews of my book came out, I learned that I had a nickname, which was Mad Max. I hope I am a little different nowadays. That said, I'll tell you what we do. I'll start telling you how I got there, after which I'll read a little bit from the book, and then I will pass you on to better people, including, that is the Air Chief Marshal, who himself has played a very important role in ensuring that the country's defense is in great shape. And then we just talk, and all of you are invited to ask questions and hopefully not throw chalk at me. But it began basically one afternoon. It was one of those days in Delhi. You lived in Delhi, all of you, or been there, when the shirt is sticking to your back. It's one of those days in May. And God awful, all I wanted to do after the meeting in South Block was get to office, write my piece and go home. Sunday got to office, I was told, I was in the States. Here is 12,000 rupees, which was pretty inadequate to start with. And you go to Kargil. I said, can I go tomorrow? I said, no, today. I said, tonight? Yes, tonight. I didn't know how to go. So all I did was go home, back inadequately, make one telephone call to a Major General who was in Udhampur, and you were what then? Air Commodore? Air Commodore. AVM, same as you. So, saying I'm coming. He was a family friend, so I said, Uncle, I'm coming. He said, come. And get on the train. I didn't have a car those days, took an auto, terribly hot, to New Delhi railway station. They said, no train to go to Old Delhi railway station. I didn't even know where it was, so I went to Old Delhi railway station, then to Udhampur, and then eventually Kargil. I'll explain what Kargil was like very quickly. I guess you don't need this, right? I have 3 hands and hold this. Yeah. So, with your permission. When you reach Dras, a wasteland of skeletal buildings inhabited by a few jittery soldiers and policemen huddled in their bunkers, the dogs chase you with a ferocity that comes from hunger. You hear them first, and then you see them, furry and half wild, barking for scraps that no one throws them anymore. This is a town that died of terror. Now, I'll tell you what it was like to be under fire. Okay. Sir, it's horrible. The skies darkened over Dras. You could still see Tiger Hill in the distance, and the snow-covered peak lit by the last rays of light. HR had arrived, and it was 7 p.m., and the Battle of Tiger Hill began. The first of about a dozen Bofors guns, green crates of ammunition beside them, began slamming their shells into the mountain. Then the other guns began, and the cacophony was ear-splitting, the confusion complete. Polythene sheets Covered windows of bombed houses in the ruined town began flapping in the breeze. Mules ambling down the road ran in panic. There were clouds of dust, and all along the road the guns were firing, pouring liquid fire into the hills. You could see the shells as they left, the ends of the gun barrel blew. You could see the determination in the faces of the soldiers. You would think of the Bofors guns placed in the meadows, towering above everything else. You would think they were the dragons of old. You would think of T-Rex of Jurassic Park. One multi-barreled rocket launcher waited in turn outside the 56th Brigade headquarters. Close by was Colonel Arup, his cap low over his forehead, directing the gunfire. Best of luck, reporters shouted at each other. It was as much our night as the army's. No one listened to Joy Thomas, the Central Reserve Police officer. Shouted above the din, his thick Malayali accent edged with panic. Run, run, I expect retaliatory fire at any moment. No one bothered in the confusion. There was too much to see, too many photographs to take. This was war and close up in the excitement. We had forgotten the cruelty inside a single shell, the bits of jagged metal that could tear your insides out or cut a limb off. Then the Pakistani gunners hit back. The retaliatory fire that Thomas warned arrived. The first shell fell on the highway 100 meters away, erupting in a cloud of white dust. The second and third landed inside the headquarters harmlessly, we thought. Everyone forgot the first lesson. Whenever there is shell fire, take cover. It was standing on the road. So was everyone else, transfixed as the army fought its first war before the cameras. This was about my friend, now Subedar Major, retired captain actually, Yogendra Singh Yadav, who got the Paramveer Chakra. I interviewed him just after. One bunker captured, 3 to go. The lieutenant asked a Havildar and 6 sepoys, including 2 Yogendra Singh Yadavs, to go ahead. And this was the moment the goddess of war smiled for our Yogendra Singh Yadav. Bollywood's most outrageous filmmakers wouldn't have got their leading men to do for the cameras what Yadav did over the next few hours. If they had, they might have been laughed out of town. In the chilly darkness on the snow-covered rocks, surrounded by dead comrades, a 19-year-old boy with a wispy mustache and a severe crew cut would become Superman. Hum saath bande the. Havildar, I don't remember his name, my friend Yogendra Yadav, there was Antharam, and someone called Rajkumar. I don't even remember the others. We moved forward in the dark. Yadav carried an AK-47, others had the Ehsaas rifle, and one person a sniper rifle. Hidden in the bunker, the Pakistanis were waiting and they fired at the 7. Yogendra was hit and another guy. Both died and we left them there moving ahead. Little later, I was with 3 others. But a little to the side, there was another burst of fire. I'm not sure where it came from. The other 3 fell. Phir main akela bach gaya. There was no time to think. I was also hit in the leg. I was bumped up. I didn't feel the pain. I moved ahead. In the darkness, a little ahead and higher up, he saw 4 shadows. 4 Pakistani soldiers crawling towards them. He lobbed a grenade. As it exploded, he saw them fall. Reaching the spot, he saw them lying on the rocky ground, mortally wounded. I picked up their gun. It was a Pika and shot them on. He moved forward. He was firing as he climbed up. There were about 20 of them in the next bunker. About 10 of them ran away, he thinks. I was crawling forward, staggering actually. There were bullets in my leg and groin. I threw a grenade at the Pakistanis and fired. Some of them were hit, but they were firing too, and one bullet ricocheted into my arm. I think it broke a bone. I took a belt off, tied my arm to the chest with the belt, and I thought that would reduce the pain. And so I went ahead again. He could see a tent very close to the peak, and he could hear a Pakistani commander order a detachment down to Lieutenant Balwan's position from one side to neutralize it. He was speaking in Urdu, but in the year and a half Yogendra had spent in the valley fighting militants, he had learned enough to understand the basics. The enemy was about to counterattack, the last effort to beat back the Indian spearheads. If I didn't inform my platoon commander, he will be overrun, I thought. And all because of me. I was wounded, I couldn't walk, I'd been hit about 15 times in the leg, the chest, the groin and the arm. A tiny splinter hit my nose. I was bleeding heavily. I could barely see anything. I began crawling down. I told them about the enemy attack. When the enemy closed in, they were all shot in a desperate fight. I had to go back. I told the colonel, there is one more enemy post. तेरे बस के कुछ नहीं है. तू जाएगा कैसे? This was how Colonel Thakur, his CO, replied. When the colonel cut off his uniform with a razor blade, his body was wet with blood and there was still oozing from his wounds. His uniform was in tatters. I'll just do one more. Then the Chief Marshal takes over as the professional here. This was about a Pakistani POW, the first guy who was captured. You remember that? When the war began, Inayat Ali hadn't imagined it would end in ignominy. Then at least he was alive, captured by the Biharis, near crippled shrapnel, a euphemism for angry irregular shards of molten metal had torn up his knee. An Indian army captain, now a brigadier, felt sorry for him. He was injured and there he was, bedraggled, shambles, and cringing and cowering before us. Execution, he imagined, was an option. The Geneva Convention, too airy-fairy and purely theoretical, considering what they've done with Captain Kalia and his 5 men. Dragged before my CEO, he looked pitiful. Pakra gaya, my CEO barked. Kyun aaya? Hukum mila, was the fearful reply. The captain had been in a serious skirmish and survived. The war won, a photograph with a POW would be a treasured memento and one of the spoils of victory. Photo le? He asked himself hesitantly. It would have been easier in today's iPhone era, but Kargil was part of the dinosaurial Nikon Canon decade. The word selfie hadn't even been invented. In the moment of hesitation, the captured Nayak was marched off. Medal and campaign ribbon, the captain, my friend, has, but he has no photograph. But at least I have a book. Sir, you're the boss.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to be here for this discussion, not only on the book that he has written, Srinjoy, but also the conflict itself. It had raised a lot of controversies. Of course, there was no controversy about how the Indian Army and the Air Force to some extent performed during this conflict to win back, all the posts that we had lost because of certain flaws in our system and also intelligence gathering, not knowing what exactly is happening, and of course, loss of a lot of lives. What he described in this book, I have just trying to recollect that war is a very, very nasty affair. And death, destruction, suffering are very high, unimaginable. So people living, in good houses, the society without much hassles in their lives, etc. It is very difficult to visualize the war, how it is executed, how brutal it is. People get brutalized when you see your friends dying left, right and center, and it's either you or the other person. One has to die. So you have no choice. And you become very brutal. You kill your conscience, feelings, the human being. But that is what is survival all about. And you are fighting not only for yourself, but also for the reputation of your army or the air force, your unit, and the nation. So it's a very complex affair. So that's what I want to put across. But let me tell you, before I go into various aspects of this conflict, and about Srinjoy. I had known him for many years, especially when I got to Delhi in various appointments in the Air Force. I came in contact with him during various media events where the Air Force commanders as the vice chief or the AOC or other appointments, you have to interact with the media. So I got to know him. And more importantly, I came to know him because he and I have a teacher, common teacher. You know, Mr. Sushoban Sarkar, he was my teacher, you know, in Sainik School Purulia, a school which prepares students, young boys, now even girls, to join the armed forces as officers. So he was a favorite teacher of all of us. He used to teach us geography, and I can tell you, whatever geography he taught me that time, I have not forgotten a single bit. And I got very high marks in geography in various examinations, you know, distinction. So I give the credit to him because he taught us so simply that it got stuck in my mind and I could never forget that. So he was coming to Delhi and I was there as a senior appointment holder in the Air Force in Subrata Park. So I learned that he is Srinjoy is an alumni of Lam near Calcutta, and that's where he was teaching my teacher, Mr. Shankar. He was a very good sports person as well. So when I invited him for dinner, I asked him that I would like to invite Srinjoy as well. He was very happy. So that's how we got to meet and break the ice and get to know each other. So that is one thing. Second thing is that I know Srinjoy is a very aggressive person. Okay. In terms of being a professional journalist, he is like an assassin with a dagger. He's waiting for an opportunity to jump at the source of the information and get his information before others. This I noticed many times while giving out media briefings, conferences, etc. So very nice. And it was aggressiveness, and he said that he is very aggressive as well. He has no fear in mind, but there is one thing, the thin line that exists between aggressiveness and foolhardiness. Now, that is what we learn in the Air Force at least, because a very aggressive person who doesn't know the thin line between aggressiveness and foolhardiness often ends up in sorrow. In the Air Force we have a term called, in the Air Force you have two types of pilots, especially in the fighter pilots, old pilots and bold pilots. Bold pilots are those who don't care. They are very aggressive. They are foolhardy, I would say. They do not know the limitations of the system and their own capabilities, and they will jeopardize the lives of their own as well as others. So they are the bold pilots. So often they do not last. And whenever we detect such a bold pilot, we try and put him away to some other business, other flying, maybe a transport aircraft or a helicopter where you have multiple people. But fighter flying for them would be dangerous for themselves and for others. And you have the old pilots who were never bold, but they survived each and every situation, combat, whatever it is. They are very cool, they know what to do, and they perform exceptionally well in combat. They keep quiet, never boast about their capabilities, but they do exceptionally well. So they grow to be old. So that is the difference. This is what we call old pilots and bold pilots. There are not many there are none bold pilots. So that's how the Air Force, boldness and aggressiveness, and the line that exists between foolhardiness. But he falls in the first category, very aggressive. That's why he could go there. I was wondering that how did the Ministry of Defence allow so many people from the media to be there where death and destruction was happening right in front of their eyes. So they taken a lot of risks. And Srinjoy himself, I think, took a lot of risks more than others because he had the charm of influencing others and getting along and get going. His aggressiveness took him there. So this is one thing I thought I'll tell about Srinjoy. The book is written, he's gone through so thoroughly. His power of observation is very good. And if you read the book, you will realize that he has drawn a lot of parallels with cricket. Indo-Pak cricket that goes on almost like a war. So similarly that was happening in Kargil. This was very evident. So I must congratulate him for collecting each and every bit of information, absorbing it from the environment through his talks and interaction and interviews with others, including the soldier, an ordinary soldier, has been remarkable. So I must congratulate him for his effort for writing this book. If you haven't read it, I request you to read it. That's one. Second thing is I'll tell you something about Kargil. You know, why was it important? Why did the Pakistanis clandestinely they occupied the post that Indian troops had vacated? I also come to various failures on our part, the armed forces, especially the army and the air force, in not being able to guess what is going to happen or detect what is happening and take appropriate action in time. So there is an important road from Srinagar through Sonmarg. Many of you must have traveled to these places, and government has eased travel in this area, including the Siachen Glacier, the base camp. And so this road is a strategic road, very important road, as a lifeline to Ladakh. It comes from, originates in Srinagar, goes to Sonmarg, then it goes past to Dras, Kargil, which is about 50-60 kilometers distance between the two, and then it reaches Leh. So this road is the lifeline to Leh. Throughout the winter and summer, especially in summer, so many trucks would be carrying rations, ammunitions, logistics, medicines, clothing, etc. for the troops who are deployed in Leh Ladakh sector, including the ones who are deployed in the highest battlefield in the world. You all know, the Siachen Glacier, where people die not because the enemy is firing at you, bullets, not because of bullet injuries, but mainly because of the inclement weather, climate errors. So more people die because of climatic conditions, through various ailments induced by the climatic conditions. Now the temperature is a minus 50 to 60 degrees most of the time. So overlooking this road, the strategic road which passes through Jozila Pass at about 12,000 feet, then it comes to Dras and finally Kargil and Leh. The average height of this road is about 10 to 12,000 feet, winding down to the valleys, etc., etc. And overlooking this road are the posts which have been occupied by the Indian Army, so that we can protect our lifeline from being shelled by the Pakistani troops, who are also almost eyeball to eyeball, about a kilometer away, occupying another ridge of hill with posts manned by them. So whenever there is a problem in this area, we would find that Pakistani troops would open fire on our convoys coming to Kargil to Leh, or vice versa. So the troops there have to be very, very alert. So what happened during Musharraf's time when he was the army chief, later on became the president after a coup, removing Nawaz Sharif. So he was a very mischievous person and deceitful guy, duplicitous behavior, and he planned behind the back of the political leadership. A few months back, I think in April or something like that, or Bajpayee had gone there to the wedding of Nawaz Sharif's son or daughter, I don't remember. So, a lot of bonhomie, hugging each other and things like that. So the military leaders and the politicians in India thought things are going to improve. One error we made is that never trust the Pakistan army, because they are totally different. They have a country to themselves. The only army in the world which is a country to themselves is Pakistan. Pakistan army. Of course, there is a better example. China, the Communist Party of China has an army to itself. The PLA. And the nation is there, but the army also. So the army is part of the PLA, part of the Communist Party. So similar situation. So we believe that things will, be normal and our elections will improve after the visit of our Prime Minister. It was impromptu visit and not a. So there was a convention of the army posts being vacated from these altitudes overlooking the strategic road during the thick of winters, because in the month of December to about March, the temperature should be minus 50 to 60 degrees. Dras is supposed to be one of the coldest place in the world, minus 60 degrees, and in winter, and you have the blizzards. It's so much of snowfall. It's very difficult to survive in those conditions in small, camps over these hills. And it was mutually agreed, no formal document, but both the parties, both the armies would vacate their posts, which was facing each other, and come down to lower altitudes about 10 to 12,000 feet to survive the harshness of the winter in those hills. And in the month of April or so, they would go back and reoccupy this post. So the Pakistani army chief, Musharraf, had planned a very deceitful game. He said, this time when the Indian army vacates this post, our troops will go and occupy. As also, they will arm themselves with enough rations, weapons, machine guns, cartridges, etc., and good warm clothing. So as a result, in 1998, December, there's a time, I have not taken part in this conflict, as not in the country. In 98 December, I was posted to Kyiv, Ukraine, the country which is in shambles now because of the recent conflict, a very nice country. And for 3 years I was there as a military attaché in the embassy of India in Kyiv, very beautiful city, very good people, I would say. So what I did there was I was looking after the procurement of missiles, beyond visual range missiles, which could shoot down an aircraft, what you could see with your eyes about 15, 20, 30 kilometers away, and also getting other missiles and bombs, etc. So in the month of May, when I settled down there, I was asked by air headquarters to check if the Ukrainian factories were fully functional, because in 91 they split, and this was 99 beginning, May. Their country was in decline economically, otherwise, and all their factories had shut down. And I went there to see whether they could produce the bombs that we wanted, basically conventional bombs of 500 kgs, 250 kgs, etc., because we wanted them in large numbers. It was not fit. So I knew something was happening in India, though nobody would tell me what exactly was happening, it was secret. So I realized that this was going to happen, and then I did manage to send a lot of equipment for the Indian Air Force, especially the MiG-29 fleet. I was on the MiG-29 fleet. I had gone to the USSR in 1986 as one of the pioneers to be trained on the MiG-29 aircraft, an aircraft which is offered by the Soviets to India to counter the F-16 that had been offered to the Pakistan Air Force, PAF. Americans have already played the double game with India. They've always been arming Pakistan. They say, no, this is against the terrorists and things like that, Afghanistan. Even the F-16s with beyond visual range missiles are going to be used against the terrorists. So we knew who it was meant against. So that's the truth, the ground reality. So the MiG-29 squadron I commanded in Pune for 2 years, 92 to 94. Then I came to air headquarters, and then I was sent to Kyiv. So I could not participate in this conflict, a regret that I have, but I made up by getting hold of the equipment that the Indian Air Force required. My squadron, the MiG-29s, had participated in this conflict, in the air defense role in the Kargil conflict. The airspace there was sanitized by the MiG-29s mainly, and Mirages to a certain extent. The MiG-29s had good radar airborne interception radar. It could pick up targets at 40, 50, 60 kilometers away, and it could shoot those adversaries down, fighter aircraft down, at a range of 30 to 40 kilometers with beyond visual missiles, which came from the Russian side, Soviet side. So, well, the F-16s are no match to the MiG-29, because MiG-29 had better radar, air interception radar is called, as also the missiles, much longer range. So not a single F-16 came within 40 kilometers of the tactical battle area at Kargil when the MiG-29s were carrying out combat air patrol. It's called combat air patrol in that region. So there was no interference from the Pakistani Air Force at all. They are very scared that they will get shot up by the MiG-29 with the beyond visual range missile. So that was the situation. So to a certain extent, you are proud that we had the better equipment, technology, and we could take care of the threats that could originate. And the armed forces, especially the Air Force, could operate in a very restrictive airspace where hands are tied by the Prime Minister's, diktat that you will not cross the line of control, LOC or LC. LOC or LC is not a line, big line which you can see from here. There is no line there. It's all hills or snow and things like that. It's very difficult to make out. When you're busy, doing combat with your adversary, you don't know what is happening there on the ground. You're not looking for the feature which is showing that this is the LOC is there. You cannot go beyond that. But whatever it is a big constraint. We could not attack the targets that you wanted from all sides, or the best side. We had to attack from our side, that is southern part of the hills. And obviously there are a lot of restrictions and a lot of lessons we learned that I'll cover later on. So this in short was the Kargil thing. And when in the month of April, the Indian army wanted to go back to their posts, original posts, they were waylaid and they are brought down with machine gun fire. A lot of injuries, a lot of casualties, a lot of deaths. Then the Indian army realized that that they are in trouble. They will be betrayed by the Pakistani counterparts, which they normally do in any case. So then they started, launching counterattacks to throw them out of this post. Large number of army infantry units are deployed. This is at a height of 14 to 16,000 feet. Can you imagine? There is no oxygen there. The oxygen quantity is 1/4 of the oxygen that you breathe in Kolkata. Okay? And the slopes are very steep, almost 25-30 degrees steep. There is nothing on the slopes, not a single green tree, only boulders and rocks. In any case, later that sector is called the white desert. There is nothing, no plantation, no greenery. So you climb these hills to reach the top and attack the post, which has been occupied by the Pakistanis. They have a field of view which is 360 degrees. Very beautiful field of view. They're just waiting there with the machine guns, waiting for the Indian troops to come up within range, and they open fire. That's how all the attacks failed. The difficulty, and you're climbing without oxygen, despite acclimatization, it was very difficult, very tough. It was one of the worst situations that the Indian army was facing. But they had to save their face, because to my mind, there was a failure on the part of the army in not getting enough intelligence, believing the enemy face value, and then landing up in trouble. So they had to retrieve the situation by occupying this post. So attacks were launched in waves, but none of them succeeded in recapturing this post. A large number of soldiers got killed, injured, very large number. So the morale was low. At the time, they had, I would say, session thinking about how to solve the problem. The young officers said that we will lead each and every attack onto this post held by the Pakistan army, and others will follow us. It is not that the young officers do not lead, but more often than not, they are part of the whole team. They are mostly one or two in the front, one or two in between, and some at the back. So when they showed this initiative that we are going to lead and you all follow us, everybody got very enthused. And so many ferocious attacks were conducted by the young officers, you know, most of them are no more. They became posthumously war heroes. Most of them became PVCs and MVCs, etc. You know the names. And so these attacks were very, very successful, with a lot of loss of lives, but each and every post was reoccupied. In addition, softening up of the targets at those altitudes of 16,000 feet was carried out by the famous Bofors gun. You know, I think it had been maligned more than what it should have been. And of course, the Air Force was there in a large way to counter, to soften up the targets with attacks. Many things happened. We lost a lot of aircraft, which will come to you as lessons learned later. But that's how the Indian Army succeeded in deoccupying this post. We lost nearly 500 soldiers and officers. Disproportionately high number of young officers. So that is the kind of sacrifice they made for themselves, for their army units, for the army as a whole, and for the nation. So it is a very huge lesson and a thing to remember for all Indians, the Kargil war. So I'll come to other aspects later on. Before that, I think I'll request Srinjoy, who has been a very aggressive journalist, who had been exposed to a lot of dangers, and I think he didn't realize the dangers of going to the battlefront where shells are being launched repeatedly, and a lot of injuries, deaths, etc. So my question to him is, how did he, find this conflict? What actually made him take on all this risk? First, I have other questions we'll ask him later. Danger and the discomfort that he faced and how he overcame it.
As the Chief Marshal rightly said, when you are sitting here, you don't realize what it's like. But it's my job. I have to go there. And I wanted to go. The one thing is, you have to do your job, you have to take your risks. Some things I did were very foolish in retrospect, but when you're young, you do those things. That's why the officers who won the war were young officers. More than this shell fire, which is scary enough, is rifle fire. If you're driving down a road and you know that highway, all those guys in Tololing are shooting at your car, it's not nice. That's what. It's a bit scary. The other thing is, I just talk about one night. That night we took Tiger Hill. And we've seen so many films, all these Bollywood, Hollywood films, we don't realize that what it's actually like. No film actually will tell you what kind of fear there is and what the risks are. So here I was standing in Kargil, as I said. When those shells started coming, one fell in front of me where the coffee is, one equivalent distance behind. So I said, shit, they're going to bracket us. The next one's going to fall on my head. So I ran towards the right. And you rightly mentioned, there's no air, there's no oxygen. Your lungs are burning. You need some place to go. That was one. Cold. I left Delhi, it was 45 degrees. There it was snowing. Regardless of how fit you are, it's not easy. Well, I'm here. That's the big thing. Even when I was there towards the end, I said, in all this, I wish I could write a book. And I'm so glad it got done. So.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Srinjoy. There are so many points where the conflict took place. Tololing, Tiger Hill, Mashko Valley, then Mantudaro, etc. So, there was something about one of the features of the fight that took place there in your experience?
I told you a lot about Raha. I'll tell you about Mashko. It's actually very funny. I was standing there one day one young captain walked up to me. He's from the Naga regiment. And the Pakistanis were deathly scared of the Nagas because there was supposed to be head hunts. So these Nagas, so he said, come with me. I was very tense. So we walked up the hill to his mortar position. Again, it's very hard to explain sitting here. There's a war going on. I'm sitting in his mortar position all day. He keeps firing, and in between all the firing with his men, I just take down the points, whatever. And at the end of the day, and I see the Pakistani shells coming over me and hitting a sort of wall behind. It's hard to explain that it actually happens. Then after all that, I go back. Now this is a steep hill. You know how it is. I'm very careless. And this is why the Indian Jawan is better than anything in the world. There were 2 or 3 of them taking me down. So he said, "Sir, in Hindi, can I hold on to your arm?" I said, "No." Then he said, two guys will walk on your 2 sides. If you fall, you will fall on them. Luckily, I didn't fall. That's the kind of respect they have. Because they know, here's a guy, he doesn't have to come here. He doesn't get paid to be here. As one of your friends, Vinod Bhatia. You know him? He's your friend. Yeah. He told me you didn't have to go there. You didn't get paid extra for it. You didn't get a helmet. You didn't get a bulletproof jacket, but you still went. Did you have accident insurance? So I very shamefacedly said no. And that's what it was like.
So what time insurance is very high.
Yes.
Okay, so that's nice. You had met a lot of senior officers there who were conducting the operations, as also juniors, with whom I think you interact a lot. I find it in the book quite a bit. Tell us something about the senior leadership as well as junior leadership.
Yes. The man who won the war for us was then Major General. He retired as Lieutenant General Mohinder Puri. Is your batch or?
No,
Senior, yeah. Puri was probably the best GOC India has had since independence. In that terrible situation, when we are facing adversity, he was very cool. And he said, I will just thrust my men onto those positions. I will wait. I will train them. I will give them the equipment. I will get enough artillery. I will get the Air Force to soften up the positions, and then I will launch attacks from 3 sides. He actually told me all this. He said, and he actually, to a large extent, his leadership saved the army. The young officers were outstanding. Remember Vikram Batra? Vikram, very simple guy, came, introduced himself, this, that, and then suddenly he's gone. So you make friends not knowing how long these friendships will be lasting. The men were actually superb. Again, one day I'd gone to one of the field hospitals right there, Batan. And I met one guy, he'd been shot in the neck or something. And later I'd gone to his battalion. I said, where is this guy? His name was Rara. These guys are so kind. They said, his mind is like a computer, he remembers the Rara because these guys were shot in the beginning. I have to say these young officers saved the country and the men. The men did astonishingly well. And I already told you what Yugender Singh Yadav was like. Astonishing. I can't believe a guy who had 15 injuries can actually do what he did. So I'm very respectful of all the young officers, men, and people like Mohinder Puri. Remember DG Mechanized Forces telling me at that time, I've told the chief that these 2 guys you don't have to worry about. Meaning Puri and a guy called Colonel Chabewa, who later became a Lieutenant General. I don't know if you know him. He's your coachman. He must be a friend. Yeah. that Chowdhury and Puri you don't have to worry about, they know what they're doing. And they did, they won the war for us. Young officers and men were truly outstanding. To do what they did, I doubt if any army could have done better. Because the level of the morale, the training, and the fact that the young officers were doing what they were doing. Remember many, just at the beginning of the war, I was somewhere, Srinagar or someplace. And this guy, I met a young officer, major or something. I said, why are you going? Your men are there, but you are stuck here. So he said, I'm desperate to go, otherwise I won't be able to show my face. You understand that, right?
No, what Srinjoy just mentioned is very true in the Indian Armed Forces, especially the Army. We may not be as good in numbers against our prime adversary, that is China, northeast and northern region. But in terms of fighting spirit, the training, morale and leadership, the PLA is nowhere compared to the Indian Army, Indian Armed Forces. That is one thing I can assure. This war itself was an example. Second, recently in 2020 or 2020, we had that Galwan conflict where it was a skirmish, very short skirmish. But the PLA is now scared. They know that Indian Army will not, let them be. If they launch an attack, they will hit them back 10 times more. And though we lost about 20 people in this showdown or skirmish in Leh, eastern Ladakh, I would say. But the number of injuries, deaths, the PLA, they could not let you know. It is more than 40. This is the figure I have got from my own officers who were there, and most of them were, died because of the cold, and they are driven into they're injured, and they went into the Nala stream below, which was freezing cold, and these bodies would float up after 8 or 10 hours, and every day the PLA would discover more and more bodies floating up of the PLA members. So finally they realized that they cannot challenge the Indian Army in terms of the fighting capability, morale and leadership. So that is a very big lesson. Despite the numbers, despite the quality or the number of weapons that they may have, but the morale is not as good, the leadership is not as good. I'll tell you why. Though I'm just digressing a little, China has single child policy. They have done exceptionally well in terms of economy, development, quality of life, standard of life. So no parents want their only child to join the armed forces. They themselves do not want to join the armed forces. So there is a crisis in the PLA in getting the right kind of people to join them, especially as officers. So it is a huge crisis. And in terms of leadership and morale, Chinese Communist Party was to hold on everything. So they purged the military leadership, they put their own people there, and they have a system where each and every army unit, right from the top to the bottom, army commander to the army chief to lower units at lower level, they have a political commissar. You may know about this. They are the representatives of the Communist Party of China who oversee, they breathe down the necks of the commanders. And the commander doesn't have the guts to actually say that I'll do the way I want. They have to listen to their political commissar. So there is no initiative with the commanders. There is no thinking of doing something new, no initiative to evolve tactics. Everything comes from the top. It's called command-driven economy, command-driven army, etc. So the morale is very good. So don't worry, even if you don't have sufficient numbers in vis-a-vis the PLA, we will win in any land conflict, definitely. Okay. Now, you were in a place where, that time we had no good communication system. There were no cell phones, mobile towers, etc. So how did you manage to communicate with your agencies who would publish these stories, etc.?
It's more difficult. I'd rather come under fire than think of those moments when I had to make telephone calls to my office. I don't know which is worse. Horrible. But I'll tell you one story which will explain it. I would call every day. There were only 3 telephones in all of Kargil, public telephones. This is 25 years ago. Even today it can't be so good. So one day, and I used to shout at the top of my voice, and my editors in the Statesman in Delhi could barely hear me. It's that bad. So one day, shouting and screaming at the top of my head. This was a terrible story. Some operation, a lot of casualties, bodies lying in the snow, this, that, so on and so forth. One of those bad days. So I finished, finally heaved a sigh of relief, put down, paid for it, whatever it was. I did realize there was one guy local, he was listening to me very intently. So after I finished, he came, introduced himself. Then he said, all this you said, I heard. So I said, good. So he said, did you actually see this? Or did you imagine all this? So I said, that's the only time in Kargil, sir, I have been speechless. But I want to ask you, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
The one moment, those 15 minutes that helped to shorten the war, was your Air Force attack on Munthodhar. I want you to tell me about that. And my other question, of course, which you can answer later, are the lessons. You were Chairman, Chiefs of Staff Committee, the senior most armed forces officer in the Indian Armed Forces. So you tell me what lessons were learned.
First, about Munthodhar. You know, there are a number of places where pockets, there are engagements, especially by the Air Force. Army had to, of course, mop up everything. Tiger Hill is one of them. And this Munthodhar. Tiger Hill was captured slightly earlier than Munthodhar. And Tiger Hill, the main attack was conducted by the Mirage 2000. It is a very good fighter aircraft of French origin. Tremendous amount of capabilities in delivering weapons. Do we have time or?
No, we have. You take your time.
Right.
It can't be so bad. Well, can't you give us the Air Chief Marshal a few more minutes?
Okay, right. So, initially the Air Force was in trouble, I would say, because of lack of experience in flying in those conditions in the hills and delivering weapons. So, first there was some problem about whether the Air Force should participate or not, and the Air Chief wanted to take it to the government and get the clearance that we will fight a full-fledged conflict to retrieve our land and coast. So, but the army was slightly reluctant, which I understand why, because this occupation of the army posts by the Pakistanis should not have gone unnoticed. That means there was a case of intelligence inadequacy. I will not say failure. So as a result, we landed up in this one. So they didn't want to take it to the government before they could sort it out. So previously as well, there were many occasions when the army had some problems. They wanted the Air Force to sort it out. So I remember in the Mirage 2000 had attacked one of the posts on the line of on the international border and obliterated it for the Indian Army, and it was okay. Nobody knew who has done it, but we knew what had happened. And Pakistanis went back with a broken jaw. So Indian Army did not understand the gravity of the situation, what is the extent of the infiltration and how it will turn out to be. Every day they are finding that the resistance was much more and more posts have been occupied. So this was in May. So that's the time, initially they said that the Air Force should help us. with helicopters and others. But unfortunately, the Pakistanis had a lot of surface-to-air missiles, shoulder fire. You hold on the shoulder, aim and fire. These are Stinger missiles from the Americans. The Americans have been arming them to the teeth against India actually. So we had a lot of losses. So Air Chief had agreed after the intervention of the cabinet, CCS, and initially it was agreed that he will send the helicopters, etc. But helicopters would be sitting duck, with this surface-to-air missile. Stinger is a very efficient, accurate surface-to-air missile, shoulder fired, and you could position them anywhere. Anybody could hold it, aim and fire. So that's how we lost, one Mi-17 helicopter was carrying out some strike against those posts of the Pakistanis, and then we realized that we are in trouble. And this assessment was made before that there are Stinger missiles in this area in plenty, because our Commander-in-Chief of the Western Air Command had flown in an Avro and flew in this area knowing that there are missiles, and one of his engine was hit, twin engine, and damaged. It was lucky that he came back and the aircraft was landed back in Srinagar. So we knew that these missiles are there. The threat of this missile is very, very potent. Secondly, then we lost this Mi-17, we lost some other aircraft. One Canberra was shot up. Canberra has gone for recce. One of the engines was very badly damaged. So Air Force had enough information, but I think we are slightly foolhardy in allowing the Mi-17s to carry out these attacks. So we lost some aircraft and people. Then you know about Nachiketa, famous flight Lieutenant Nachiketa and Ahuja. Ahuja was flying a MiG-21 and Nachiketa was flying a MiG-23. So both of them had gone there to carry out attacks on the army post of the Pakistan. So Nachiketa, in his exuberance, a young person like Lieutenant, he was one of my pupils, even Ahuja. So Nachiketa had fired all his rockets. 80 millimeter is the width of this rocket, and firing them in a salvo of all the missiles, close to over 32 of them, at those altitudes, about 16 to 18,000 feet, was calling for trouble. So that means the Air Force was also not very prepared in tackling or firing weapons at those altitudes on the targets designated. So when he fired all his rockets, the exhaust gases engulfed the engine, and the engine got choked because there is no oxygen there. At 18,000 feet there is hardly any oxygen. So engine quit, it flamed out. That means the flame went off. So engine had to be restarted. So he tried to restart the engine, but he knew the engine will not restart above 10,000 feet altitude. You have to come down to 10,000 feet, then only it could restart the engine. As a result, the altitude of the place was 12,000 feet, so you have to eject. So that was a flaw, I think, on the Air Force's part. Lack of training and not understanding how to tackle these attack missions. Second thing is, his partner, Ahuja, he was there in the airspace there. Both of them were putting in attacks on the Pakistani force. When he observed that Nachiketa has ejected and his parachute was coming down, he kept on tracking that parachute so that he could locate the place where he is landed and transmit it to the helicopter which would come and retrieve. Okay. See the bargain, in his enthusiasm to keep track of this Nachiketa's landing spot, he came down quite a bit. And at those altitudes, you don't see, you are trying to locate the person and keep in contact. So as a result of this, he had come down to less than 8,000 feet. And that is the kill range of the surface to Stinger missile, and he got shot. So both of them were captured because they fell on the other side. The enemy was there, and unfortunately Ahuja was mercilessly beaten up and killed. Nachiketa, of course, had a lot of injuries, bruises, but he survived because one of the captains was there when he landed and he saved him. Because the officers normally understand the Geneva Conventions and they are not as brutal as the soldiers are. So that's another story, how Nachiketa got saved and we came to know all about what was happening. But this Tiger Hill and Muntadhal, Tiger Hill was the first one where we found that this lobbing of bombs and rockets is not good. They are not very accurate. In the hilly region where there are ups and downs or dead ground from one hill to another, if you miss the target by 1 meter, it could mean a kilometer because it is going to the dead ground beyond the hill. So you have to use something which is very, very accurate. So Mirage 2000 with their laser guided bombs was used to neutralize these targets at Tiger Hill and Muntadhalo. Muntadhalo had huge quantities of stores, logistics stores, which the Pakistanis had built, and it was obliterated by attacks with these smart bombs, laser guided bombs, and the kit actually was fitted on a conventional bomb of 500 kilos. A kit was made with the help of our friends from Israel because they are expert in making such contraption, and it became very successful. The bomb could glide much longer, further, and more accurately guided and hit the target. That's how the Muntadhalo became very famous. What existed in terms of a huge hub of logistics for the Pakistani troops there was obliterated within just 30 seconds. So accurate was the weapon. Similarly in Tiger Hill, I think this skill you may have seen in many places during presentation. So most of the places were surrendered and destroyed with the help of the Mirage 2000 with very accurate. So this is one thing.
My final question, sir. You were the senior most armed forces officer in India. Kargil happened before you took over. As chairman, chiefs of staff committee, what are the 2 or 3 biggest lessons the armed forces have learned?
I think there are many, many lessons.
Surely it's a valid question.
Yeah, very valid question. But if I cover all the aspects in terms of lessons learned, failures, etc., it will take a very long time. But I'll keep it very brief. First of all, intelligence. Intelligence gathering, it's bringing out what it means. Intelligence that you get has to be properly processed for good information. Information which is usable by the Army, Navy and the Air Force for making our plans to neutralize the adversary. So we did not have good intelligence because once the Army units came down to the foothills of those hills there in Kargil and Dras, there was no attempt to keep monitoring what is happening across. When the Pakistan Army had made plans to occupy them, obviously they had catered for large quantities of ammunition, logistics, food supplies, clothing, medicines, etc. Obviously the hinterland has to prepare for it, and that intelligence is available. Therefore a humans working as intelligence agents did not function. So he suffered grievous losses because of the intelligence failure. More importantly, now it's relevant after 25 years plus that we need to have continuous monitoring of the tactical battle area where we are going to fight the adversary by locating each and every formation that is there, its movements, so we know exactly what the plans are and how to counter it. That is possible through means of satellites, space-based assets we call it. So India has done well, ISRO has done well. They are competing with the rest of the international other countries who are doing exceptionally well, and it's in that league. But even now we do not have adequate satellites to give you 24/7 observation or intelligence of area of interest. That is another thing. Third thing is that there is a need, of course, for greater coordination. Pointing fingers at each other is not the way to move forward, but understanding each other's shortcomings and strengths, and trying to cover up the shortcomings and using the strengths to better sharpen it and utilize it in conflicts. So that is the third lesson to my mind. Okay.
Thank you very much. First of all, I can't tell you how grateful I am. Here are so many people who come from different parts, and some of these guys that come from America, not necessarily, and Singapore and different places. I'm so deeply touched that here is a book that was written 25 years. I was considered a bloody loser who can't write properly. And here is here is a book that survived 25 years. It's not because of any credit to me. It's because of credit to people like him and his friends who helped me to write the book, and all of you who have actually read it. I want to say thank you very much. Yeah.
Pilots, Indian Air Force pilots, were not trained enough to fight in those conditions.
Yeah.
Why?
I'll tell you why. I didn't cover that because it will take some time. First of all, we normally cater for battles on the plains, all over the sea. So we have some patterns of carrying out attacks with various types of weapons, be it bombs, guns, rockets, etc. But we don't have a range to practice delivery of weapons at altitude. Range means a place where you can actually train. We have a lot of ranges, like in Jamnagar we have Sanmat range, which is at sea level. And we have in Kalaikunda, Dudhkundi range, we have Dulanmukh range, we have many other ranges, Pokhran range, but it's all flat land and over the plains, but nothing in the hills. We had one very close to Srinagar, and the name, but the state government refused to give us that land. They wouldn't give it on lease. It was on lease for practicing it. But that was at a 7,000 feet altitude. But firing a weapon or dropping a weapon from 18 to 20,000 feet above the ground and firing at 7,000, 8,000 feet. So that practice was done. And that is one thing.
Arvind,
That shortcoming still exists. But we have computers and simulators to overcome this problem.
Yeah, so I have three parts to the same question. It is on the capability from the technology perspective of the Indian Armed Forces. If I just take a very quick, simple math over the last 13, 14, 15 years compared to the last 50 years, I think the budgets have expanded a lot. The kind of contracts that are being given out by the Army or the Air Force or the Navy are in several, multiplier effect. Does this mean that the Indian Armed Forces were under-equipped for a very, very long time? And if it's a secret, you don't have to.
No, nothing is secret. I'll tell you.
The second part being that when you talk about space-based assets, ISRO is launching satellites for the rest of the world at a fraction of the price that NASA or anyone else is doing. So is it just the launch capability, or does India possess the technology in terms of the satellites? And if that is so, then why can't we cover the space to monitor the sensitive areas? And finally, drones. Specifically, can drones operate at the same accuracy levels at 12,000 or 14,000 feet as they can at lower levels? And if that be so, does India have that capability, or have we bought enough drones to make that area completely monitored? Thank you.
In case I forget the questions, you don't mind. I'm used to taking one question at a time. Okay. First thing about our budget. You mentioned that our budgets are expanding, increasing progressively. It's not. Okay. Because 10% increase in the budget actually caters for what? Inflation. And most of the things that we have bought is the capital budget which matters in terms of acquisition of new weapon systems. So if I've already purchased 4, 5, 6 items, very costly equipment, then I am paying those installments every year. So most are already committed. If I get 50,000 crores, 40,000 crores is already committed. Liabilities that I already have in terms of the equipment that I purchased in last 5, 6, 7, 10 years. So net amount that is available to me is just 10,000 crores. You can't buy nothing. So it is not true that. I'll give you an example. In 2023, China's defense budget officially was 300 billion US dollars. Officially. Unofficially, how much was it? 700 billion US dollars. India's budget for defense budget for 2023 was 1.9% of the GDP. Okay, that is about 70 or close to
70.
Between 70 and 90 billion US dollars. So we are about 1/10 of the, our adversary, I would say, competitor, China. So we have to prioritize that I need 10 things, but I have money for only 2 things, so I have to buy these 2. So it is not true that budgets are expanding and it is transforming. In fact, we are much better off before. If you ask me, in terms of the strength of the, our armed forces equipment, especially within the Air Force, we had close to 39 squadrons against 42. Now you have 31 or 30 squadrons. So when will the rest of the aircraft come? We do not have enough funds or not enough emphasis has been given. The emphasis is on, indigenous production. Tejas light combat aircraft, AMCA, that advanced combat aircraft, which is the 5th generation fighter aircraft, etc., etc. And force multipliers like, AWACS, airborne warning aircraft, etc., control system. We have very few. Flight refueling aircraft, we have very few. So we don't have enough assets as force multipliers to increase the efficiency of the equipment or the weapon system that we have. So this is the irony of the situation. We may, keep crying hoarse that we are Atmanirbhar, will do this and do that. Unless you do it on ground, it carries no money. So that is the first thing. So we are not very badly off. But third question, drones. You got to have a capability of good fighter aircraft, transport aircraft, helicopters, heli-lift, airlift, all these things plus force multipliers like AWACS, etc. I mentioned. So insufficient numbers. We do not have them. Barring C-17, C-130, heavy lift aircraft, transport aircraft, and medium lift helicopters, we are not so good in the rest of the equipment.
Chinook has come.
Chinook has come. So heavy lift helicopters we have enough. We can airlift, and in these hills, you have to. What will matter is your transportation capability inter-valley. To one valley you lift up your troops because they are already acclimatized to another valley because the battle scenario might change. So if we have that capability with Chinooks and Mi-17 heavy lift helicopters which are from Russia, we are much better off. But in terms of fighter aircraft, we require more numbers because we have to tackle 2 fronts. That there is no doubt. And in fact, China is going to arm Pakistan to the teeth with even FGFA. So even if we don't have the FGFA, I don't think it's too much of a problem, but we must have sufficient numbers of 4+, 4.5 generation, that is the Rafale kind of aircraft, with a very good weapon suit and missiles, etc. But we also need to have drones. Drones is the latest in terms of aerial warfare. Swarm drones and UAVs, what do we call it? UCAVs, combat. But our agencies who are involved, DRDO, they have let us down, I would say. They have not succeeded. Unfortunately, the truth is the ground reality. They have not been able to produce these weapon systems for quite some time. They are always asking for more time and more cost overrun. So we keep on buying from outside. So you may put a ban list that you will not buy this, you will not buy that, but who will buy? Who will get it for us? So the DRDO labs and the defense public sector undertakings can take it on, then it's fine. The Tejas, it was cleared for production many years back, about 10 years back. How many aircraft has come? I don't want to give you all the secrets, but very few. The air chief has been, airing his views about this. It's true. So there has to be some effort, funding, etc. Though Americans have played a very dirty game, not giving us the engines, because we have not yet produced the engine which will propel the fighter aircraft. The engine is being produced by GTRE, Gas Turbine Research Establishment of the DRDO, one of the very important labs. 30 years have gone, 5,000 plus crores have been spent, but they are very unfortunate. So we are buying it from the Americans. G 404, F404, which is actually used as an engine for the Tejas Mark 1 and Mark 1A, and Mark 2 will, and the AMCA will be fitted with GF414, which is much more thrust, etc. But they said they have already signed an agreement, MOU, that they will give us the transfer of technology to produce these engines in India, but they will not give us 20%. Most critical technology, nobody will give you, not even your best friend will give it to you. We have to produce it ourselves. But that sort of push is not there.
Don't mind.
So I have two queries that I have. After the Kargil war, you talked about the lack of intelligence, and we also heard about some shepherds giving intelligence to us about movements which I think were largely ignored, and as a result they were able to infiltrate. And therefore the need and importance of satellite-based real-time, every 24-hour you sweep of that areas of interest, AOIs, as we call them. So your air intelligence unit, I had interacted with them even after the war, and when several in my capacity as the head of the government business for TCS, I was trying to bring in lease satellite imagery at 72 centimeter resolution. But I must honestly confess to you that it was a struggle to get the mindset changed within the people who have to consume such data to be able to come with some meaningful intelligence. The other thing that I wanted to find out about, you talked about the silos and the fact that there was a need for better cohesion amongst forces. And I did observe in my work life that there were all these silos. You had the air intelligence unit, you had the army doing something, you had the RAW doing something, you had the IB doing something, but there is no cohesion or exchange of information. So, as a lesson learned, do you feel that today India is a much more cohesive in terms of information gathering as well as information sharing, so that we can be having maybe a single source of truth rather than multiple sources that ultimately don't add up to anything? Do you think that that has changed as a result of one of the lessons learned in the Kargil war?
Okay. Intelligence gathering, we have many agencies in India, collecting intelligence. We have external agency called RAW for external intelligence, as well as human intelligence from various sources. We have, then we have the IB, we have the police, we have the military, and we have other agencies, ARC, then NTRO, a lot of organizations are there who are collecting a lot of information which is to be processed for it to become intelligence. So whatever you said was true, and the shortcomings have been realized, have been worked upon for many years, and now I think we have a center where all the information or the intelligence is sent, they process it, and then all the users are given the intelligence that is required. So it's more or less streamlined, but means of collection of intelligence we need to upgrade in terms of the satellite imagery, etc. We need to have not only one sweep a day, but 24/7 focused in the TBA. Because when the war starts, the dynamics of the war will be determined by the steps that you take finally based on the intelligence. What has happened, who has moved where, who is where, what should you do? That is one thing. Second point is that network-centric warfare has become more realistic now with the integration of radars, missiles of the armed forces, Army, Navy, Air Force, as well as the civil radars. Okay, all these civil airfields, civil aviation is just going through the sky, expanding very rapidly, transforming the airspace of the country. So they are all integrated. And we know exactly what is happening where, who is airborne, who is friendly, who is hostile, who is not so friendly, etc. And we have our weapon systems geared to take on these threats. If something is declared a threat, it will automatically tell you that this is the best solution. Automatically, you don't have to, it's all automated. So
CNR it's called.
it's a network centric warfare.
Control and reporting.
Yeah, integrated air command control system. So it is quite good, and it has covered the entire peninsular India as also the neighboring states, airspace, and also our island territories. So we are quite well off that way. But definitely space-based assets, as you mentioned, we have the capability, but the ones you are launching is commercial for others, and we are getting money. The ministry is getting money, the Indian government is getting money. But for the armed forces, there are not enough funds to operationalize all these SBS, states-based satellite systems. So we require more funds.
Jaydeep?
Yeah, so now that we're speaking so much about intelligence and your reporting, daily reporting, call back to the statesman, so do you think your immediate reporting of what was happening over there could possibly help our enemy?
Not at all. Not at all. Because for the simple reason, what I wrote was what I saw.
Which they couldn't see from there.
Yeah.
But
So
now they can.
if I put it in the paper, right, what is at the end of the day, there is very little when I'm not putting in. There are only two things or one thing that they want to know, right? The fact that we have certain weapons, they know. The fact that we have a number of troops, they know. The fact that we are going to hit in certain areas, they know. The only issue that is of importance is when. It's not the fact that you and I are going to have a cup of coffee, it's well known. The important thing to know is when we are going to have that cup of coffee.
After this.
Ah, right. But they don't know that. Right. So that's really the important thing. Because Air Chief Marshal Raha was the man who told Prime Minister that I am a pilot, I don't have enough aircraft, which is why these 36, how many? 36, right? 36 Rafales have come. Now, the important thing is, he has 36 Rafales, the whole world knows that. The question is, what are you going to do with them? Which target are you going to hit? Now, if I don't write which target I'm going to hit, that's all that is required. One thing in your point, the night we took Tiger Hill, every one of us knew that it was going to be Tiger Hill on such and such day and such time. All of us landed up there. So all of us knew when we were going to hit Tiger Hill. But the one side that didn't know was the Pakistani side. Because we didn't say tomorrow we are going to knock Tiger Hill. So you can say whatever at the end of the day, but it's particularly important, as everyone knows that Tiger Hill will be attacked, but we want to know when, and that nobody knows. Or it didn't come in the meeting.
Would you think that would be an intelligence failure for them?
See, hard to explain, right? They had enough people on the ground. My suspicion is they had enough spies in Kashmir at any given point. But they didn't know when we were going to, because only a very few people knew. Again, about 15 people in the media. So we all landed up there, as you would read in my book, as you have. Yeah. But the Pakis didn't know. Thank God. And even if they did, what can they do? They would have done a few more things, but Tiger Hill would still have fallen. Because the force, his planes, the artillery, it was so overwhelming, Tiger Hill had fallen. Just as an example. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Sir, you said something about President, and then he was General Musharraf.
Musharraf, yes.
Yeah, so he kind of duped us. He duped us into, selling to the decision taken between India and Pakistan, right? So whose decision was it? Was it a political one, or is it army one, or is it together?
No, I couldn't get what was the decision?
I mean, decision to bring the troops down
Down.
until April.
No, it was nobody's decision. It was convention.
Yes, the convention is a political convention, right?
No, not at all. It was the army's decision.
But this used to happen every year.
Every year. It was the norm. It was normal. That survival there was very difficult.
So every year it was.
Every year it was happening. But this time
Only this one time that he decided.
Yeah, he decided that let's get the better of the
It was
Indian army.
nothing to do with that Simla that we
No,
that they had.
no.
Nothing that
One thing I
outcome
can-
of that or anything.
One thing I can say, I'd asked Nawaz Sharif once. My meeting with Nawaz Sharif is a story in itself. But I asked him about this Khalid's. I said, did you know
He said it.
that this attack would be taking place? Did Musharraf tell you? Yes or no? He said, I did. He may have sort of said something, but I had no idea.
He publicly said that, but I don't believe him.
That's
different.
That's different. You have every right. But that's what I remember him telling me, that I wasn't told about it. I didn't clear the attack on India. He thought it was. Musharraf would have said it in his duplicitous way. That, sir, we are going to do a little, this, that. But the import of the whole thing
Magnitude.
may not have been.
In case the army disregarded the political leadership. As I said, Pakistan is the only country which has the army which has a country to itself. So they wouldn't bother about the political leadership.
With Agniveer recruits coming in, do you think the level of motivation will be as high?
It cuts both ways.
Because they're short.
Agniveer would be okay to my mind. The non-technical branches, trades. Okay, we have a lot of soldiers, infantrymen and things like that. So army, most of the branches it is okay. But the technical branches, especially the technical branches of the army dealing with communications, engineering, civil engineering, etc., and the air force with so much of equipment that you have in terms of aircraft technology, which is state of the art, radars, missiles, etc., and the navy as well. I think Agniveer would be a loss to us. After training 5-6 days, you let them go, then you letting go people who are already primed to take important positions. The training will be further enhanced and they will be useful. But definitely if these people can be absorbed in the industry outside or in other forces, perfectly all right. But Air Force and the Navy, to my mind, has suffered.
Any more questions? Sir.
Sir, regarding this Kargil war, one question which I was bringing to mind is that if there was a game changer, because we were in a low altitude, we were getting fired upon, the young captains were taking the lead forward, was the Mirage 2000 the game changer in the Kargil war?
Definitely. You see, Mirage 2000 is very good at both the roles, air defense role, then taking part in air combat, and with the good air-to-air missiles, in close combat as well as beyond visual range engagements. It has a good radar during its time when it was inducted in '85, and for the last so many years now, almost 50 years now. So 40 years now, it's done very well. And it has tremendous capacity and capability in terms of attacking ground targets. Very accurate, And fortunately, we got a lot of weapons from our Israeli friends, with great accuracy. So, Mirage 2000 was effectively put to use then in 1999 during the Kargil conflict in softening up and destroying the positions of the Pakistan army, as also during Balakot.
Yes. F-16 Wing Commander Vadam.
Yeah. So it's a very good aircraft, and all our adversaries are sitting on the same.
Can we have a final question if someone does want to ask a question? Otherwise, we all have to sort of gently say goodbye and move towards.
So what is your view on suicide drone strategy for war that China is building up? They are not building drones for intelligence gathering or surveillance, but suicide drones, I believe the number is about 500,000 that they're manufacturing. So it's going to change the dynamics of a war strategy, aerial war strategy totally.
Yeah, kamikaze drones are not new. Indian Air Force has it for quite some time. We got it from our friend in the Middle East, and these, once you launch it, you give the destination where it will go, it will hover there.
Arup, no? Oh.
So it's a kamikaze drone. It will detect any radar, any important vehicles, tanks, vehicles, etc. And it will go and strike that vertical diver and it will destroy that. So it is not something new. It has been there, but there are some problems in the hills. In the hills, the winds are very strong. These drones may not be very effective. And drones may not be very effective at night, etc. Bad weather conditions, which is preeminence of bad weather in the hilly region is very strong winds. So drones may not be very effective, one. Second is the signature of the target. Whether it is on the ground, in a desert, or on the plains, or in a city is different from what is there in the hills. There are a lot of shadow areas, dead ground. It's extremely difficult for drones to really be very effective. In fact, even aircraft are not so effective in hilly regions. So drones are not that important, but yes, on the plains they will be very effective. Like it is happening in Saudi Arabia, they attack those. Houthis had attacked their oil fields, etc. So it is quite.
Also Ukraine, Russia,
yes, they all.
Azerbaijan, Armenia.
Yes.
All of them.
Okay, thank you. That was really fascinating. And on behalf of Prabha Khaitan Foundation, our heartfelt gratitude to both of you today, Srinjoy Chowdhury and Arup Raha, for this very, very interesting discussion. I would also like to thank our associate Taj Bengal and a media partner, My Kolkata, and of course our patrons, Sri Cements Limited. And of course to all of you, our wonderful audience. Without you, I don't think this evening would be possible. Thank you. Now, as all of you know, the Foundation promotes cross-state cultural appreciation to foster unity and appreciation of the rich cultural heritage across India's diverse states. So today we would like to felicitate our guests with a token made in Dokra. Dokra is a non-ferrous metal molded by artisans to create artifacts, accessories, utensils, jewelry. It gets its name from the Dokra Damar tribe of West Bengal. And this ancient bell metal craft is practiced in Bengal. Could I now request Sri Arvind Agarwal to kindly come up and felicitate our guests.
Excuse me.
This is so beautiful.
Excuse me.
Thank you.